Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's masterclass, Resume Rescue. My name is Elizabeth, and I am here today with friend of the Mom Project, Ashley Cash, executive resume writer and interview and salary negotiation expert. We are so excited about this session today because I know we get so many questions about resumes, and Ashley is here to help us all get them tuned up and ready to go. Today, we're going to talk about innovations in AI and ATS systems when it comes to resumes, how to tailor your resume to fit your skills, insights for making your resume stand out from the crowd, resume gaps, and more. Let us know where you're coming from in the chat. And Ashley, I'll let you introduce yourself. And then I have a few housekeeping notes that we'll get to after you just say hi.
Awesome. Hey, friends, I'm Ashley Cash. Just like Elizabeth said, six-figure resume writer and career coach for folks targeting 6 figures or better. And don't tell anybody, but big fan of the Mom Project, my absolute favorite partnership. So if we've met on here before, hello. And if we haven't, hey, welcome.
We absolutely love Ashley, so we're so excited. This session is recorded and it will be saved here on LinkedIn and on YouTube, so you can rewatch it anytime. And we will have time for questions at the end. So add any questions that you may have into the comment box and we'll try to get to all of them at the end. Okay, Ashley, I will let you take it away.
Awesome. Okay, you guys do me a favor. If at any point while I'm speaking, you guys let me know if you cannot hear me, you cannot see me, or you cannot hear my slides, or you can't see my slides. And let's get into it. Really quickly in the chat, tell me one thing you're hoping to take away from our session today. Okay. And lots of different places in the house. Ann Arbor, Michigan. Oh, I bet it's beautiful this time of year. Tell me in the chat, I'm keeping an eye out on one thing you're hoping to take away from our time here together. I've planned, obviously, some notes ahead of time, but I'll be sure to try and address anything special and or leave time for questions. All right, so I'm seeing some resume tips and all that jazz. What does personalizing your resume for the job really mean? I know that's right, Jess, because depends on who you ask, you get a different answer, right? Marisol wants to know, what am I doing wrong? Marisol, stay tuned. I have a slide literally that says what you're doing wrong. All right, I see how to improve with a gap. Kentucky's in the house, standing out. Mary, I was waiting for this one. How to handle having been home for a while. And then how to also use AI to make resume writing, updating more efficient. All right, let's get into it. What you guys are asking is what I prepared. So let's go. So over the next 40-ish minutes, or until the baby wakes up. I'm just kidding. I held her out from her nap for a while, so we should be good. But over the next 40-ish minutes, I'm going to show you how to update your resume to package and position yourself for opportunities without endless resume revisions or becoming an AI expert. If that sounds good to you, just give me a yes with all the exclamation points you can muster in the chat. If that sounds good to you, give me a big yes and give me the exclamation points to let me know that it's real. Okay, so really quickly though, before we jump into all the good stuff, let's talk a little bit about why I do this. So these little cuties on the screen are my 2 daughters, and I do this work for a couple of reasons. One, it's important for them to see me going after my dreams, using my gifts and talents to serve God's people. And it's also important for me to have a career that enables me to be the type of mother that I want to be: present, active, energetic, creative, all the things. And then there's another reason, and that is the wage and wealth gap for women. So what you see on the screen, oh, someone's saying no sound. Uh-oh. Y'all can, okay. Okay, perfect. I got freaked out. I was like, no sound. Okay, let me know. But what you see on the screen here is some data from paygap.com that talks about over her career, because of the wage gap, women lose almost $900,000, right? Now, Imagine, and maybe you guys tell me in the chat, right? Okay, great. Sounds good. You tell me in the chat, what do you think you could do with an additional $900,000 over your lifetime? Right. And we're not even talking about brunch and bags, right? Like we don't care about that. I mean, we love a brunch, we love a bag, we love a good shoe, but that's not our why, right? That's not our reason, right? We think about our kids, we think about the community ripple effect that we can create. We think about causes that we care about. $900,000 can go a long way, right? Well, let's go a step further. The wage and wealth gap for, yeah, Maxine says buy groceries. No kidding. Okay. My baby loves organic raspberries. Like, hello. Right. So some of even the basic things, babies through college, retirement, save some money. Right. I see retirement. I know for me, creating or being able to care for mine and my husband's aging parents is really important to me. But look at the graph here, and this actually shows the wage and wealth gap for women of color. And over our lifetime, because of the wage gap, we tend to lose, or we have the potential to lose $1.6 million in wages over the course of our career. Exactly. So that's a lot of organic raspberries. That's houses, that's homes, that's conveniences, right? That we need to be the best women and moms and partners and daughters, et cetera, et cetera. Right. So that's a lot of the reason why I do this work, because it is so important to me to help others be able to not only, become gainfully employed, but earn enough money to take care of the things and the people that matter to them. All right. So now that we have all talked about what the things that money can help us do or fuel our futures, let's talk about our resumes. Now, there are two things that I'm going to talk about that we need to do before we write or edit our resume that you probably aren't seeing a lot of people posting online or LinkedIn about. And the first one is ignoring imposter syndrome. Okay, give me a me in the chat if you can relate to what I'm saying. If you are someone who is elevating your existing career, and as you approach your resume writing, you find yourself like, oh, I don't want to sound too, boastful, or I didn't complete that project 100% on my own. Should I put it on there? I've been out of the workforce for a while. Are my skills and experiences still relevant? Am I applying for the right early? Like, should I even, because I've been out of the workforce for a while, should I try to go back into a manager or director or executive level role, or do I need to, start from the bottom again, right? All those things and questions and this push and pull around before we even open the document, right? So the first thing I want us to do is I want us to just ignore that, right? All those thoughts. One of my business coaches would call them gremlins. All those thoughts are gremlins that make us question who we are and what we can do, or if we still got it. Oh, I love Tilda says AI. AI is more overconfident. I know that's right. So whatever you got to do, Tilda's got a great hack there to help her overcome or ignore imposter syndrome. Yeah, Maxine says, at my entry level, I don't feel like it. Exactly, right? So all those thoughts. So we want to ignore those thoughts and questions, Maxine. And then the second thing we're going to do is we're going to starve the stigma. I'm talking to people who are, and if I'm talking to you, give me a me, but I'm talking to people who have been laid off, due to no choice of their own. I'm talking to people who have made the brave decision to stay home to either raise children or care for loved ones or care for themselves, right? I want us to starve the stigma around re-entering the workforce or taking a pause or having been part of a layoff or a reduction in workforce due to no fault of our own. In fact, I'm going to ask you guys to be vulnerable with me for a minute. Is that cool? We friends here? I'm going to ask anyone who's saying me, right? Yes, my military spouses. Thank you for your service, Elise, both yours and your spouses and your families. I want you to tell me in the chat. We're going to be vulnerable for a second. I want you to tell me exactly what there is to be ashamed about, right? If you are someone who feels like there's some stigma around your choices or things that have happened to you beyond your control, tell me exactly what there is to be ashamed about. Because here's how I starve stigma, right? I put a name to it. I name that thing. I call a thing a thing. I look it square in the face and I say, nope, you no longer have control over me, my thoughts, my feelings, or my actions. So that's what we're going to do today. Before we even open a resume document, we're going to starve the stigma around any choices that we've made or choices that were made for us or circumstances we find themselves in. No more, not today. We are leaving all those things that we are ashamed about in this chat. So if you are feeling brave, if you are feeling vulnerable, I want you to leave that stigma in the chat and let it starve. Leave it right here to die. Okay? Cool. All right. So we are starving the stigma. We are getting our minds right. And now we are getting into the tactical pieces, right? Somebody just said, not fitting into expectations. We're starving that. Who cares about employers' expectations? What are your expectations? I care more about your expectations than theirs. Someone said about being laid off is a comment on my value. Again, leaving that here in the chat. You didn't make that decision. Some group who made decisions for the whole made choices for the few. No control over that, right? Making the brave decision to have children or pause or pivot. All of those things we're leaving right here in the chat. Nothing to be ashamed of, right? We are looking those things right in the face. Sandy said, someone told her, you are replaceable. Well, so is the person who told you that, Sandy. We're leaving being replaceable right here in the chat. That is no longer holding us down. Okay, so now let's talk about what we're going to do as we begin to write our resume. And I'm going to, if you haven't already noticed, I'm going to have you guys continue to chat with me in the chat. But the first thing that we want to do is choose our destination first. And what do I mean by that? Somebody a few moments ago made the comment around, how do I tailor my resume? What does it really mean to personalize a resume? And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to choose for ourselves, not for anyone else, not for the industry, not for what people think we should do. We're going to choose for ourselves the type of role and or industry in which we want to work, right? In which we want to lend our talents, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is do that. We're going to make a choice. Then what we're going to do is we're going to create a resume that is specific to that industry and or role that you're targeting. Now you might be thinking, okay, well, Ashley, what does that mean exactly? It means that instead of having a resume that is everything that you've ever done in your career, that is maybe broad, what we're going to do is we're going to say, you know what? My background is in digital marketing. And so for the foreseeable future, or for the purposes of the resume edits I'm working on, I'm going to have a resume that speaks exactly to my skills, experiences, and accomplishments around digital marketing. Right? Now, let's just say you are like me and you are multi-passionate, you are multi-talented, and you're like, well, Ashley, I could do digital marketing, but I also have a great skill set in, let's say, project management, right? So I bet you can guess what I'm going to say next. Tell me in the chat if you want to read my mind and guess what I'm going to say. Well, the next thing then, if you have an interest in maybe two types of roles or different industries, you're going to have a resume per industry. We're going to choose a role per industry. Per role. So we're going to have a digital marketing resume, and then we're going to have, let's say, a project management resume, right? So let me know in the chat if that's not making sense. But yeah, we're ultimately going to have sort of multiple resumes. So rather than having one resume that's trying to kind of one size fits all, exactly. So Mary's got a couple different things, right? And you guys, Mary, if you're not reading the comments, Mary says chief of staff, comms director, and then social media and content director. So that's such a great call out, because if you think about it, Mary, all of those different types of roles have different skill sets, right? I mean, there's some overlap here and there, but it's not exactly the same, right? Like what a chief of staff does, right? Which is be sort of that, Someone says they can hear typing on the audio. I think it's my headphones. Give me one sec. Because I'm not typing.
I think it might be your headphones too. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Here. How about now? Is that better?
No. Talk again.
Talk again.
Oh, I don't hear it yet.
Okay.
I'll stay live and I'll let you know. I hope you don't mind that I'm interrupting.
No, I don't. If not, because I'll just like pop them out. I put these in because my AirPods were being all weird. And now these are being weird. So
they
thanks
sound
a lot,
fine
Apple.
right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I won't move.
Stay very
Andrea,
still.
Elizabeth, thank you for letting me know. Y'all let me know if you hear it again. But yeah, I was saying about just the different skill sets required for each of the roles. And so rather than have a resume that has sort of like a little bit about a lot, let's go the other way. Let's have a lot about sort of that expertise or what the reader's looking for. Okay. Let's switch gears just a little bit. And now let's talk about the truth about AI and the ATS. The first thing is the ATS, who I know is not getting a Christmas card from any of us this year, right? Everyone hates the ATS. Everyone thinks and feels like the ATS is this abyss of where our resume goes to sort of die. Well, just think about it that the ATS is an assistant to the recruiting professionals who are reviewing our resume. And if there are any hiring managers or recruiters on here, feel free to give me an amen if I'm saying something that is accurate. But the ATS is not, again, this place that companies want your resume to go and die. Instead, it is a tool that helps our recruiting professionals quickly sort of assess a large number of candidates. But here's a little inside secret. When I was a hiring manager for some major corporations, I would always say to my recruiter, hey, don't screen out anyone. Like, I want to see 100% of the resumes that are coming in for my roles. And so again, if you're a hiring manager or a recruiter, you can let the folks here know that the majority of the time, a human being is reviewing your resume, right? Lakeisha says it's not the enemy that folks think. So please, if you get nothing else from our time together, know that the ATS is not the enemy, right? If you are getting screened out by either what you feel like is the ATS or a human being reviewing your resume and either not seeing quickly and immediately what they're looking for, or what they are looking for being so buried through all the other stuff that it's an immediate no, that's more of what I would be concerned about rather than the ATS. Which brings me to my next point is relevance truly is the name of the game. And again, any hiring managers, any recruiters in here, definitely feel free to chime in and validate what I'm saying. But again, you want to focus your resume around the experiences and skills relative to the role that you're seeking. So if you've got sort of this security blanket of like, okay, I'm just going to put everything I've ever done because, I don't want to look like I'm too junior, or I'm afraid to go too deep, or maybe if they see that I have all this like broad or vast experience, they'll think XYZ. And that's actually not the case, right? So the ATS, human beings, right, especially a stranger, they're focused on black and white, the words that are on the resume, the skills that are on the resume. They're not making inferences. So if you have been sort of avoiding maybe revising or removing components of your experience because you're afraid, or you're thinking that, again, someone is going to infer something about you because of that being there, you would be better served to revise that to focus on, again, the skills listed in that job description. The next thing you want to know, let's talk about AI. I heard a couple people say that they're interested in using AI. And I love that the folks that I saw commenting about AI were talking about it from the viewpoint of a tool and not this end all be all. Depending on, who's in your feed or what's in your feed, you are seeing people now who are saying like, oh, I can just put my current resume or a job description in, a chat GPT, and it will spit out, the most perfect, beautiful, amazing job getting resume. And that's simply not the case for a couple of reasons. One, you want to be mindful when you're using AI that you're always putting that human touch to it. I think AI is a great tool to prompt or help you expound upon an idea, or maybe even clarify, a thought or content or a bullet, right? But you don't want to use AI to say, write me a resume. 30 seconds later, just add water, you have a resume, because it's supposed to be a tool and not sort of that weight loss pill, right? It's not supposed to be that miracle. And here's the other thing for anyone interested in utilizing AI for your resume, or any other document that you're going to be sharing with other people. A very, very important thing to do is know that for AI, the better your input, the better your output, right? So you hear this term called prompting, right? Which essentially is, what is it that you're asking the tool to do, right? What are you asking it to produce? And so if you just put in, let's say, a job description and say, how would you write a resume bullet for this, right? You're probably going to get something maybe a little bit more generic, or maybe something a little bit more sort of like, hey, at a glance, I can tell this was generated by AI. But if you want to go a step further and say, okay, I just saw the question actually. Someone said they are doing a complete 360 in their career, started out as a financial planner, and are now trying to go, it looks like, into, they've also been a life coach, and they're trying to figure out a coherent transition, right? That's actually a great prompt, right? To say, what are some of the skills that someone who has been a financial planner and is interested in now being a life coach, what are some of the transferable skills that would, that this person should call out on their resume? Or even before you even type in resume, what are some of those transferable skills? What's the biggest transferable skill from someone who spent a career in finance who is now moving to life coaching, right? So the better you get at sort of asking questions, the better results that you're going to get. And maybe don't think about it necessarily from the viewpoint of a resume, but really think about it from the viewpoint of, what exactly is it that I'm asking this tool to provide for me, right? Like if I want to try to give a better illustration of my skills and what I can do, then ask it to help you with that, and not necessarily to just like write a resume. Okay. So better input is always going to give you better output. And that's funny because that's kind of how life works in general, right? All right. So now let's talk a little bit about my folks who have spent some time away from the workforce, right? And maybe you're trying to figure out, how do I reenter the workforce? How do I talk about my pause? I think the first thing that I want to talk about is, if you are someone who has taken a pause and you have spent that time volunteering and or doing unpaid work, again, whether that is in the care of others, working in the family business, maybe running your own business, I want to talk a little bit about you just thinking about that in a different way. Like I want to start with just changing the perspective of that before you sort of discount yourself and think, oh, it was unpaid, or just volunteering at my kid's school or something like that. I want you to think more about, when you volunteer, how are you contributing to the organization in which you serve, and or how are you contributing, let's say, even if it's in a domestic capacity, how are you contributing and why? Like, right? Why is that important? So let me illustrate that a bit for you. And if there are any PTA parents in here, just give me a quick yes. This is the first year that I have been on the PTA board. And let me tell you, honey, this thing operates like a full-fledged center of excellence. Okay. Like this, you cannot tell me my kids' school's PTA is not a PMO office. And let me tell you a little bit more about that. Okay. So Rachel feels me, right? And if your PTA operates like center of excellence, also give me a yes in the chat. But I even made myself some notes because I didn't want to forget. But let me tell you some things that you can take from, let's just say, some volunteers' experience. If I were writing myself a resume based on my PTA board service, these are some things that I would highlight. For starters, we work very, very closely to our standard operating procedures, right? So both documenting those and also following those. I mean, to a T, right? It matters how we do things. There are formal meetings. We manage the hiring and managing of third-party vendors, and you would be surprised how many vendors and community partners are part of our PTO, our PTA at my kid's school, and those vendor relationships that we not only go out and vet, but also hire, right? So these are all skills that if I were writing a resume based on that experience, I would be talking about. Same thing with Girl Scouts, absolutely. Budget management, right? So if you are a committee chair or a PTA president or Girl Scout troop leader or any sort of civic organization, I won't even limit it to, kids, but any sort of civic organization, community organization, the budget management that has to take place, the budget reconciliation process is getting something approved, right? These are all skills and experiences that, we do in corporate roles. The community engagement, seeking sponsorships. I don't know about y'all, our PTA has a like diamond level sponsorship. It's like $7,500. Can you imagine walking into a community organization and pitching, hey, write us a check for $7,500 and here's why, right? So that fundraising and development and pitching community sponsors and creating value propositions, right? It sounds like I'm working for a corporation, doesn't it? Negotiating contracts, negotiating the terms and lengths of sponsorships, also engaging with stakeholders, right? These stakeholders range from parents, teachers, administrators within the school, school executives, our school board, and other members of the larger PTA organization. Another thing that we do, we plan towards strategic goals against the school calendar. Again, if this is not a center of excellence, I don't know what is. Managing resources, evangelizing our work. We do programming that feeds into national programs for our schools. And here's the thing, right? Because this is about resumes, right? We do that to support 700 students. This is just at my daughter's school, 700 students, 100 plus teachers and staff. So, right, that's our metric. And then the why, we support student learning and enrichment. We contribute to our school and school districts' national rankings. And we have a significant impact on our school's operating budget. All those volunteer hours, all that fundraising and development we do, that means that my kid's school has budget to do things that enrich their education. And a lot of this work that we do is largely valuable, but highly, underrated. So I said all this to say, if you are volunteering in any capacity, I think Deanna is asking the question about, do other people recognize it? It's about speaking the same language, right, Deanna? So you heard me talk about, the reframe, right? I talked about budgeting. I talked about strategic goals, sponsorships, calendars, budgets, right? Those are corporate terms. And I have not told not one lie, right? So I see all the PTA powerhouses, our Jack and Jill moms, again, civic organizations, all of that work can be reframed and talked about in corporate terms and not a lie will be told, right? So that's just something that I really want to make sure that if you are doing any type of unpaid or volunteer work, whether it's related to kids or not, again, it could be for a family business, a friend's business, but I want you to, again, think about the how and the why, right? Or simply put, reframing that work and experience into corporate terms. Andrea, and I hope I'm saying that right, Andrea and not Andrea, she says, how do you learn that language if you're not in it? Well, one of the things that you can do, Andrea, is you can look at the job description. So if a job description, and maybe Andrea, you can tell me in the chat what it is that you're targeting. If a job description, for example, says you're going to have to do some sort of budget management, financial analysis, et cetera, rather than be intimidated by that, corporate term, think about that in whatever capacity in which you're working right now. Again, paid or unpaid, volunteer, whatever, and say, okay, am I managing a budget? Oh, yeah, actually, I am as the committee chair for that. Or if they're asking for stakeholder management, right? Again, just unpack that or use AI or Google and say, okay, what exactly is that? What is stakeholder management? And then when you sort of unpack some of those terms, you realize it's like, oh, wait, these are just the people who have a vested interest in whatever it is that we're doing. So 1,000%, look at the job description, see what they're looking for. And before you say to yourself, well, I don't have that, or I haven't done that, maybe unpack the terms and then say like, totally, I've totally done that. Okay. Let's see. Kelly asked a question just really briefly, and you guys, please do not let me have taking us down a crazy rabbit hole about PTA. Like if you don't have kids, if you're not interested in PTA or you whatever, this can go for any sort of volunteer, paid or unpaid experience. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm crystal clear. This is not a paid advertisement by the Texas PTA. But yeah, and so Kelly, if you are more interested in serving more, getting more broad experience, I know our PTA board, we always have some sort of opening. I would just reach out and just say, hey, where can I serve? Where can I help? The other thing is, yes, you can absolutely, in the name of integrity and clarity, show that this is volunteer experience. But I guarantee you, if you are talking about your contributions, one, not only in shared language, but two, when you talk about impact, people pay attention. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know for a fact between all the volunteer hours and all of the development that our PTA does, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we give back to our school. So be thinking about not just the how, but the why and why that's important. All right. If anybody's confused or feels like I'm trying to make you join the PTA, speak up. Okay. One other thing I want to make sure you know is that if you did it, it counts. And if you meet 100% of the bullets, you check all the bullets on a job description, you're overqualified. You should probably be managing the person that's doing that job. And you guys tell me in the chat if you've heard this. I've heard a stat that says men, if they meet 50% of the job requirements, will quickly apply for a job, whereas women, we sometimes, not all, right? This is just anecdotally, we're looking to hit 70 to 80%. And so I'm going to challenge you, if you have not only done the thing that they're asking for on the job description, but you have also clearly articulated that on your resume. That's the gotcha. Clearly articulated that thing on your resume, go ahead and hit submit. Okay. So then I think someone said, but what do I say? What do I say? So one of the things that I want you guys to all think about is it's less about this flowery, poetic, results-oriented, detail-oriented, 20-year veteran with a track record of proven results in ambiguous environments. What? Right? What does that even mean? I don't know. So I want us to not feel like, well, I don't know what to say, because really, I think what some of us are meaning is, I don't know how to write resume poetry. And you don't need to write resume poetry. In fact, if you have resume poetry on your resume, I want you to spend some time clarifying and simplifying that language. Instead, right, we just want to be clear, concise. We want to use industry appropriate language noted in the job description. And we want to describe some of the results that we've done, right? You heard me say just a moment ago in my PTA example, that we serve 700 plus students, 100 plus staff and administrators, through programming, et cetera, et cetera. If you're wanting to communicate something about being detail oriented, what does that mean? Right? Does that mean you are a strong editor? Does it mean you are really good at being the final approver of something? Does it mean you are able to capture, the minutia? What exactly does that mean, right? Same thing about no proven track records, summarizing your accomplishments. And let me say for this group, don't be afraid to count what may be considered the small stuff. There is no such thing on a resume, right? If there was some sort of real world impact or win for that organization, include it. Dana is asking again, you do not have to have been on a PTA board. You don't have to be on a PTA at all. Like your kids may be grown, college, whatever. I was just using that as sort of a personal example. So any volunteer work experience, Dana, is applicable in this case. If you are just a card carrying PTA member and you are doing stuff, put that on there as well. Okay. So there's no like filter in terms of what experiences can count and can't count. Are we good on that? Doesn't matter. Whatever volunteer experience. All right. So let me show you guys a quick video. Pray for me that this works. Let me show you exactly what you're doing wrong on your resume when you're writing it. Okay. Here, I'm going to share this tab instead. Let me know. Maybe you know this movie.
It's just, yeah. Ian is a vegetarian. He doesn't eat meat.
He don't eat no meat.
No, he doesn't eat meat.
What do you mean he don't eat no meat? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I make lamb. Come. Come.
Okay, let's see if I can go back. Bear with me 1 second. Let me pop back. Do you guys remember that movie? Please tell me I didn't just like age.
No, it's such a classic scene, but I know when you're like, I'm like, I gotta go back and watch it. When did it even come out?
Oh my God. No idea. No, I see it. Here. Oh wait, now my YouTube's trying to play. Here, let's see. Are you guys seeing my screen again?
Not yet, but I know that some of you have been putting your questions in the chat, but as a reminder, we'll get to the Q&A section in a bit. So keep adding your questions in because we've started a few of them already.
Perfect. Okay. I'm sharing my screen again. Okay. Here we go. So if you don't know that movie, it's my big fat Greek wedding. And the scene, if you didn't quite catch it, the girl in the movie, her fiance, she's Greek, and she goes to a family dinner and she says, "Auntie, listen, he doesn't eat meat. He's a vegetarian." And the auntie says, "What do you mean he doesn't eat meat?" And then she goes, "Oh, don't worry about it. I made lamb." Right. And to just bring that to light, what I mean by what you're doing wrong is, and we've already talked a little bit about this, you have a job description in front of you, right? That's the vegetarian. It's telling you, this is what we're looking for. These are the skills. These are the experiences. And some of us insist on being like, "I got some lamb. Here's everything," right? Let me know if that's making sense to you. If that makes sense, tell me yes, right? So our resumes are just as much about refining or revising the experiences within the work that we've done on our resume as they are everything that we've done, right? Let me say that maybe a different way. I want you to think about in your job, any job you've ever had, any volunteer capacity you've ever had, right? You've likely had a laundry list of things, a bunch of hats to wear, right? And so it doesn't mean put all those things on there, but if you're looking for a marketing role and within a role that you've had, you had some marketing, tasks or projects, focus your resume on those things. Leave the rest out. So the next time you sit down to write your resume, I want you to think about that scene, right? The job description is saying, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat, right? I just want veggies. And when we try to put everything we've ever done, every task we've ever held, that's the auntie saying, don't worry, I made lamb. And that makes it really hard and really confusing for the reader to choose you. So if you want to stand out from the crowd, take that approach. I guarantee you, other people are not doing that because other people, again, are wearing sort of that security blanket of, I don't want to look too junior. I don't want to look like this. They're going to see this on my resume and think XYZ. They're too chicken, pun intended. They're too chicken to really revise and narrow that thing down just to the skills and experiences from each role that are relative to the job that they're looking for. If that's not making quite sense to anyone, again, we'll have plenty of time to talk through that in Q&A, but that's what you're doing wrong, and that's the way to fix it. All right, so as a quick sort of recap before we go into Q&A, this is the money slide, right? So if you want to just, again, really hone in, what are the things I should be talking about on my resume? This is a slide to tell you where you can go and find those sources. If you want to use AI to help you sort of illustrate or draw out your ideas, you can absolutely do that. But what you want to focus on are, look at the job description, believe what these people are saying, right? If the job description is not mentioning developing social media content, why are we giving real estate on our resume to that? Even if that was part of the job, even if it was part of the job, if the job description is not mentioning it, you don't need to mention it. Okay. But you can ask, you can look to job descriptions. You can look at job reviews. You can think about your experiences, especially if you're like, gosh, it's been a while. I've been home for a while. You can think about your experiences through the lens of people, projects, and processes. And always, always, always think about the so what, right? What was the benefit? And if you are in a role, I think I saw someone pose that question a moment ago. Maybe you're not like in a revenue generating role, right? Like maybe you're not in sales. Maybe you're in a creative department, or maybe you have like a reporting function or something like that. Maybe in HR or something where, again, right, you're not generating revenue. But again, ask yourself from a people, process, or project standpoint, what are the numbers? So let's go with the HR example, or even go back further to my PTA example. What did I tell y'all? That the work that we do supports 700 students, 100 teachers and staff, right? That's a number. That's a metric. So that shows sort of the gravity of the work that we do. If, again, maybe you didn't directly manage the budget, but maybe you complete reporting for a project portfolio valued at $1 billion, right? So there's always a number, there's always a why somewhere. So just think creatively about, again, sort of the people, projects, or processes, and then maybe some of the metrics behind that. And if you don't have it, because it's been too long, you were never privy to it, maybe you were privy to it, but you didn't write it down or you didn't care. One of the things that you can do is you can always use words like increased, decreased, the largest department in the company, words like nationwide, global, right? Anything that kind of shows scale and or breadth. You can use like the Southeast or Northeast, or I just wrote a resume the other day and I can't remember the exact use case, but the client was working on an app. She's an app developer. And one of the clients was the NFL. And so the sentence I wrote on the resume was developed an app, blah, 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 for the like NFL's 1.5 billion member audience or something like that. Like I Googled how many people watch the NFL every year, right? And I think I said like globally, right? So 1.5 billion people globally. Now she's an app developer. She's not a player. She's not, a coach or anything like that, but she gets to lay claim to that viewership because she's developing an app that's going to support or be used by that large of an audience. So again, I want you to kind of be thinking or reframing, that's the word of the day, around how can I put some metrics or gravity to what I do. I think that was my last slide. Just for the people in the back, we're going to make sure that we're applying to things that are aligned. Getting a bunch of robo rejects does not help our confidence. It hurts. So that pray and spray method, right? We want to stop that. We want to get focused. We want to focus on alignment and intentionality. And then here on the screen are some ways that you connect with me. You can take advantage of a no cost, no catch complimentary resume review at the link. I think Elizabeth had dropped that in the chat a couple times. She'll probably drop that a few more times. Email me, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the things. And now I'd love to turn it back over to Elizabeth for Q&A, and I'll try to be like super fast.
Oh, I'm muted.
Yeah.
I think we'll, we were going to pull some up, but I think the one thing that I see a lot of people asking in the comments right now is, do you need to have an individual resume for each job you apply to?
God, no.
Okay.
Friends, we don't have that kind of time. I got laundry. When I get off here, I'm going to try to get a load done while the baby is sleeping. I don't have that kind of time, and I know you don't either. So here's what you do. I'm going to say this again. Instead of revising your resume for every job, all I want you to do is I want you to pick a lane, right? So I use digital marketing. I want you to say, you know what, from here on out, I am only applying to digital marketing jobs because that fits my expertise, or that's, you know, what my interest has been in, or I'm pivoting there or whatever. But for all intents and purposes, the only thing I'm applying to, digital marketing. You're going to look at a couple digital marketing jobs, and the more you look at them, you're going to be like, wait a second, it's the same skill set. Maybe they worded it differently, but okay. They want you to have, you know, good communication skills, good collaboration, creating content calendars, partnering with the social media team on larger scale campaigns or what have you, right? Tell me in the chat if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Over and over again, you see the same skills, maybe worded a different way. And so you're going to take that same approach and you're going to be like, well, I'm just going to create a resume tailored to digital marketing. Now, if I'm a pray and spray, I will apply for every digital marketing job out there, but I know for a fact that resume is going to have all those keywords because the only thing I'm looking at is digital marketing. And insert your preferred role, like substitute digital marketing out for project management or finance or whatever, HR, whatever, right? So just as long as you take that strategy, no, you do not have to do surgery on your resume over and over. Where you mess up is when you start scrolling and you're like, ooh, I've always wanted to be a recruiter. This job looks cool. What do you mean Lululemon is hiring? Oh, I'm going to just put my resume out there. That's where you mess up.
Right. It's just being strategic about what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Because also, we talk about all the time how career paths are not linear. We all do, you know, how we get to where we are right now is so different. But,
yes.
You know, I think about my experience, and I've done PR, I've done social media. So in theory, I could break it out into two. And have
absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, such a great example. Yep, exactly.
Another question is, Kelly said, is there a rule of thumb for how far back in our history we should list on our resume?
I love that question, Kelly. So my general rule of thumb is 10 to 15 years. No matter if you've been working since the 80s, 10 to 15 years, because, right, that's the more relevant work. And then you got to think about technology, consumer preferences, industry shifts, et cetera, et cetera. If you have been out of the job market, like you've been on a pause longer than that, honey, use what you got, okay? Use what you got. So if you got to go back further, go ahead and go back further. And then if you can supplement with things like volunteer or maybe additional education, et cetera, et cetera. Great question, Kelly.
Another one is, how do you answer the question that asks if you had specific program experience? And the answer is no, because I can always learn a new program. I love that attitude. I love that attitude.
Absolutely. Well, so if you're talking about from the vantage point of interview, and they ask that question, you're going to always go to the yes and, or I'm sorry, no and, right? So like, no, I'm sorry, no, but. So no, but I do have experience in XYZ, right? So you're going to show them what you do have and then follow that up with, and I'm willing to take a course or, pick that up, or I've researched it. These tools are very similar. That's how you're going to answer it.
Yeah, I love that. And also maybe I'm just jumping in here, but giving an example of, well, in the past, I didn't know this, but then I learned how to do this.
Love it. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. We have so many questions. Kate asks, if my job title boxes me into roles that I don't want, is it okay to change it? Title is business development lead, but in the role I've done program management, and I'm looking for more program related roles.
Yep. So I love a co-brand, Kate. So I probably wouldn't change the title. What I probably would do would be like business development lead / program manager. And then, so the way I write resumes is I typically will write like a little summary overview. So then my first sentence of the summary would be like, leads, sales programs, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to be like honest, transparent about my actual role, but everything I talk about within the scope of that role is related to program management.
Amazing. And so you definitely recommend having that blurb at the top.
Oh, for sure. Even if it's like 1 or 2 sentences, because nobody's reading the resume like top to bottom, like a dinner menu, right? So like you want to find new opportunities to get in keywords and or wherever their eye lands, you just want them to find what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Another question. How do you incorporate being a caregiver, overseeing HHA's doctor appointments while also freelancing at home in a creative field?
Yeah, so this one can be a little bit tricky, and I think it just depends on who you ask. So keep in mind about what I said about we want to always give the reader what they want, right? Our resumes are about us, but they're not for us. Does that make sense? They're about us, but they're not for us. So if you have been a creative, and I am going to assume you're going to be looking for creative roles, I would emphasize the work that you've done in the creative space, even if it hasn't been a lot, right? You don't have to, it doesn't have to be mighty, right? You just have to talk about, this is what I've done. These are the results that I've gotten. These are maybe some of the projects or maybe a client profile. It's your story, so you get to tell it how you want. Now, if you have also been caregiving, my personal preference is talking about caregiving or a pause. I just put it as like career sabbatical or career pause. And I don't put any other details around that. Because really it's none of your business. I mean, not you, but theirs. And if it comes up in an interview, it's a little bonus. If it comes up in an interview, I always say something like, I made a brave decision to focus on my family. But like life, right? Nothing is linear. We've talked about that a lot. That season has ended. That's but one chapter, and I am ready and willing to start the next one, right? Short, sweet, and to the point. And if they're asking for more details, you can say, you know what? That's all I want to share about that. But I am so excited about this digital marketing role, and here's what I've been doing to prepare for that. I've been doing creative and freelancing. I've revamped my school's PTA website, and, we raised $1 million because of this one website thing, right? Like you just shift that conversation. So that wasn't exactly asked, but I did want to share that with y'all.
No, because that's exactly, I think people have that question a lot. Is like, how do I talk about that in an eloquent, quick way? And we'll move on. But I think I want to write that down. That's like the perfect little takeaway from this is how you answered that was like the perfect way. So
I love that.
I can record that.
And can I give you guys one more like little teeny tiny tidbit? This is the power move. All right. Yes. Like this is the power move. When you say something like, oh, we know life is not linear. This is but one season. Ask the person that's you're talking to, can you relate? They'll be done. Because you know what they're going to say. Yeah. Yes, I can. Yes. And then the stigma, all of that, like you've just leveled the playing field with, can you relate? Everybody's got somebody in their family they've cared for. Everyone's had a hard season, a tough season. Everyone can relate. But I'm
Well,
so excited to talk about this marketing role. Here's what I've been up to.
Well, and I also think that highlights a very, very important thing about your transferable soft skills. Like, I'm empathetic. I understand that that things happen to everybody, and I know how to just move on and let's continue the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Deanna said, own the gap, shift to your skills. Absolutely.
I love it.
Okay. Another question is, do you recommend a one-page resume? It doesn't have to be one page.
2 pages max. Don't lose sleep over it. I care way more about if you have aligned your skills and experiences to the job you're applying to. As a decision maker, recruiters and hiring managers tell me in the chat, I've literally never saw a resume that's 2 pages and been like, I would interview this person, but for this 2-page resume, don't lose sleep over it.
Okay, then what about cover letters? What is just your quick opinion?
Quick opinion, if they ask for it, do it. If they don't, skip it.
Okay. Another question, we're like rapid fire. These are good. Any tips for someone like me who has no college background?
I would focus on impact, results, what you do, who you served. I'm a big proponent of like name dropping. So if you've had some big clients, whether national or locally, talk about like, hey, I've done work for Coca-Cola, or hey, I was a person that helped Dave's Pizza Shack on Highway 30 go from, 1 location to 10. That's what I would focus on. Nobody will argue with results.
Nobody will argue with results. Ashley, thank you so much. This has been so informative and so helpful. And I know that our community has so many of these questions all the time. And to everyone who is asking, there is a recording available. So it will be here, available on LinkedIn on this same link. And it is also available on our YouTube channel. And then we will take some of these takeaways and kind of compact them, because you've given us so much information to work with and so many ways that we can really be intentional about looking for a job. And I think my biggest takeaway was really honing in on like, I'm going to only look for digital marketing roles, and that's it. That really fits my skill set. That was a big takeaway for me, and hopefully a big takeaway from our community. Ashley, I want to just pop this back up here to let everybody know, if you're watching, take a screenshot so you can take a picture. Thank you all so much for joining us. Ashley, thank you so much.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Absolutely love you.
Love you more. Talk to you later.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining us.